What is going on, everybody? It is the FF Mediators. I am joined by Coach. My name is Matt. Today, we're going to walk through your questions. So be sure if you're here, like the video, throw your comments in there. Let us know your questions, your start sits, your trades, whatever you've got going on for your fantasy teams. Let us know in the comments, and we will be sure to answer all of your questions. Coach, how are we doing tonight?
Man, doing good, doing good. This time change has me a little bit rattled this week, but I'm good.
Hey, I'm happy to be here with you. Happy to answer some questions. I think we're gonna have Tyler dropping in later tonight too when he gets back. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what we've got tonight. I'm sure everyone's going to be giving us really difficult questions because they have every single week so far. But coach, I just got to ask you. We're getting to that point where we're trying to win, trying to go get some players to help fill out our rosters. Who's a guy right now that you're looking for at a running back position to kind of be your contending piece?
Well, when I think about contenders, I think about players that other guys may want rid of, especially in Dynasty. Maybe there are older players that a team that's rebuilding is looking to move off of. A guy might can get for inexpensive. Running back wise for me, I think of James Conner. He's gotten a ton of workload every week. He's older, so somebody may be looking to offload him. Like I really think he's a guy who can help push you over the edge.
I think you're spot on. I mean, the volume there is just everything you want. The team scoring some points, so he's got that goal line lockdown. Yes, DeMarcado scored last week, and didn't McBride have a random rushing touchdown too? I think so. That
Yes.
was kind of an interesting situation. But for me, the running back I'm after is David Montgomery. I think, given the last few weeks, yes, he only had 12 points 14 weeks week before, 8 the week before that, so he's kind of playing a little bit worse than as you'd expect. But man, he's just so good. He scores touchdowns. This team is rolling. He is someone that I absolutely want on my team. So we've got a few questions in here, Coach. We'll start answering those, I think, in just 1 second. And then we can kind of pick up some more contending pieces throughout the show. But we appreciate everyone who's in here. So if you're here, please be sure to like the video, give it a share if you can. We're happy to be here. And let's start answering some questions, Coach.
Let's do it.
All right. Michael says, "What's up, gents? What's up, my friend? The Dynasty Dogs are in house. We're happy to have you here. Hope you're doing well, Michael. Really happy you're here. Let's jump to our first question here, Coach. Pittman, is he droppable? It's funny this question comes in, and it's our first one of the day because we were just discussing Pittman off stream. It's a tough time to be a Pittman owner.
Yeah, he might be droppable. I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right? Depending on your league and what you've got. Um, I think Pittman's a good player personally. Like he still has a lot of football left in him, but right now it's a mess. Something's going wrong there. Like I wouldn't hesitate to drop him if I had something better I could go get.
Yeah, if you have someone on the waiver, Jimbo, let us know and we can kind of answer the questions. He adds coach. He has Tank, Marvin Harrison Jr., Lad Pickens, and Jawan Jennings to go with Michael Pittman. So a solid group, but I would say it's kind of an underperforming group. It's not exactly been what we've wanted. Tank has been great. Marv has been a little bit of a letdown. Lad is a sneaky player for both of us. We really like him. Obviously, Pickens now with Russ,
Mhm.
the deep ball's kind of unlocked, and Jennings is just kind of a depending situation, you know?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, it depends on what's out there, right? If you got something better, you could go get. And yeah, like Matt said, let us know what your other options are.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important to know. Jared over on Facebook, he has been here every single week. Thank you for being here, Jared. We appreciate you. He says, "Good evening, guys. Have a 12-team redraft trade question for you. Would you deal Joe Mixon and DJ Moore for CMC and Pickens? He's also the Mason owner coach. How do we feel about this trade?"
I think I would do that honestly. Like CMC is going to be good. I think Pickens is an upgrade over DJ Moore right now. The way things have been going in Chicago the last few weeks, I do really really love Joe Mixon. But CMC, it's kind of one of these moves to me. Like if you do this move, you're going for it, right? You really are taking a chance to try to win this league. If CMC hits, then you will win the league. I mean, that's one of those plays to me.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Coach. This is absolutely swinging for the fences, going for that home run play, and I'm okay with it because we're playing to win the game. CMC is that good, so it doesn't bother me if you want to go out there and try and get CMC. Now, moving Mixon might hurt, giving your running back depth. You do have Jordan Mason, so that's going to kind of help negate if CMC has a little bit of a setback or something like that. But absolutely agree with Coach too on the Pickens over DJ Moore take. DJ Moore has not been great so far. The Bears' offense isn't exactly what we've wanted it to be, and George Pickens has looked a lot better, especially with Russ kind of unlocking the deep ball and moving the ball down the field. So I'm perfectly fine with this deal.
Yep.
All right, Coach Garrett Roberts says sell on Tyreek. Now that is an interesting question. I think I would entertain it, but the question is, what are you going to get? I mean, he had 12 points last week, 5 targets, 4 catches, 80 yards. Now that Tua's back, I'm a little less hesitant to just go and move Tyreek for nothing. But, Coach, are you exploring moving Tyreek if you can, or are you holding him?
Well, I mean, I think some of this comes back to, I mean, is this redraft or is this dynasty? If this is dynasty, then and I'm losing, then yeah, you might as well move Tyreek. I do think he has another year or two left in him where he could be solid. With Tua coming back, though, for me, like it feels like I'm trying to buy Tyreek if I'm in redraft right here. Like there's a chance down the stretch here he's gonna explode and could really help you.
Yeah, I think so too. If I can get Tyreek on the cheap, I'm happy to do it. Like Coach said, depending on whether this is redraft or dynasty, kind of changes the answer. Assuming it is redraft, Garrett, I'm not going to sell Tyreek just for nothing. So it's really going to depend on who I can go and get. But it's all so dependent. So if you're still in here, throw some ideas of players that you think are on the block in your league, and we can kind of walk through some of those. Because we're always down to move them if we can get something we think's an upgrade.
Yep.
Big E on YouTube says, Coach, would you trade Josh Jacobs for Jonathan Taylor?
Well, I think where I'm going to go here is going to be surprising. I would not. Like, I would rather have Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is in a better offense. Josh Jacobs last week had 13 touches for 95 yards, 7 yards a carry. Like, Josh Jacobs can play. Like, Jonathan Taylor's really good. I get that, but it's sort of the name for Jonathan Taylor at this point. Like, he hasn't produced like everybody thinks he would or thought he would, rather. He's been kind of a letdown for more than 1 year now.
you know, uh, and we're sitting here looking at Josh Jacobs. He's RB12 on the season, and he hasn't scored but 3 rushing touchdowns. I think
Mhm.
that number can definitely have some positive regression. So I'm kind of with you. I almost want to hold Josh Jacobs. I think you're paying for the Jonathan Taylor name. You've already had a 3-week stint of injuries, I think. He was underwhelming last week, didn't really do much. The offense, what's it going to be with between Richardson and Flacco? It's kind of a game that I'm not really wanting to play right now. And I have Jonathan Taylor in several leagues. And it's been a little bit frustrating, the back and forth. But for me, I think I'm going to hold Jacobs if this is redraft. If this is dynasty, then I'll take Jonathan Taylor in that situation. But
Well, and you kind of know with Matt LaFleur, the Packers' offense is going to be pretty dang solid. Like it don't matter who's playing quarterback.
yeah, I think you're completely right there. And with how the Packers move the ball and just given the opportunities he's going to have, I mean, when looking at his box score, man, it's wonderful to see the workload he has, the yards per carry, the yards in the game. He's involved in the passing game too. Like he's just good. Like he's really, really good.
Yep.
Let's jump to our next question here, Coach. Over on Facebook, Jared asks us, who do you like this week? Dallas Goddard versus Dallas, or Taysom Hill versus Atlanta, or Jonnu Smith versus the Rams? Well, I don't care too much for Jonnu Smith versus the Rams. I mean, I do think that Jonnu Smith has been involved. He's getting a lot of different screens every single week, it feels like. But, Coach, do you have a preference on any of these tight ends here?
I mean, for me, it's Goddard, Jonnu, Taysom in that order for me.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams are a pretty good matchup against tight ends, so there is that for Jonnu. Um, Taysom Hill is tough to predict. You just don't know what the Saints offense is going to look like um, coming into this week. Last week he had 5 targets, 4 catches, 41 yards. Not exactly that helpful, but he did have, I believe he scored, so that certainly helps you. But it's just difficult to predict. So I think I'm with Coach here on his order as well. We just got a super chat from Big Draft Energy. Disco, we appreciate you being here. We're really happy to have you. Thanks for the super chat. We really appreciate you. I hope you're doing well, my friend. For those of you that don't know, be sure to go give him a follow on X, subscribe to his YouTube. The guy is absolutely positively the nicest person in the entire fantasy community. Can't say enough good things about our good friend Disco.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's head over to our next question here, Coach. McMillan and Noah Brown is on waivers, Coach. Does that interest you for dropping Michael Pittman? I think for me, I'm going to hold Michael Pittman on those 2 names.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's some spice with McMillan maybe, but I think I'll hold Pittman.
Disco says, "Are we live on this thing?" We are live, brother. We are live. So we are happy to have you, my friend. All right, let's hit our next question here, Coach. And it is, let me get to it here. Start 1, Jordan Mason, Jonathan Brooks, or Braylon Allen, Coach. I don't believe myself that I'm going to fire up Brooks right away. I want to see it first. Just given the whole history of coming off the pup, I'm not exactly ready to just jump straight into that. But choosing between 2 backup running backs, that's tough. Does the CMC injury scare you at all, coaches, or do you believe he's just going to be fired up like normal and just ready to roll?
I think if he's back and he can play, the 49ers are in a position where he's going to be fired up and ready to roll. Or they wouldn't be putting him in there. That's how I feel. I hate this decision. I definitely don't think I would fire up Brooks. I'm with you on that. I do think I'm going to go Braylon Allen, Mason, Brooks. That's my order there. I not feel good about that at all.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Mason, Allen, Brooks. I mean, let me pull up Brooks here and just see if there was anything else that came out today. I mean, he was activated. He hasn't played at all. Team didn't commit to him on Sunday. So I don't know. I don't feel great on firing up Jonathan Brooks right away. This is a terrible situation. I don't know if you've got somebody on your roster you can drop and pick someone up, but that's probably a situation where I'd be looking at that. Let's jump to our next question here, Coach. Andrew over on YouTube says, should he start the Chiefs or the Falcons defense this week? Man, again, I feel like
you got to hype Pete up a little bit here.
I'm about to do it. I do this every single week. Appreciate your question, Andrew. We will certainly answer it, but I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that you need to be go and look at Pete's video here with the Face Off Sports Network. Pete Supernova, that man does a defensive video every single week, and he is on absolutely fire right now. I think he's hit a top 5 defense every single week since the start of the season. He's just unbelievable right now. But Coach, if you had to pick between these 2 defenses, do you have a certain way you're leaning?
Yeah, I would take the Chiefs. I mean, they're hosting the Broncos. I do like Bo Nix a lot, but Bo Nix has 0 help around him outside of Cortland Sutton. Everything else is just kind of gross there in Denver on offense. The Chiefs are at home. Big game in the West there, so I think I'm taking the Chiefs.
Yeah. Does it feel like this Saints game is a little bit of a trap for the Falcons? I mean, the firing of Dennis Allen, Marshawn Lattimore gets traded to my Commanders. It's just interesting to me. There's no Olave, no Shaheed. Yeah, Hot Take City just says it in there too. No Olave, no Shaheed. I think I'm going to go with the Falcons in this situation, but man, I am a little bit scared.
The offense is a little bit sneaky in New Orleans. Like, I'm kind of with you on that. The Falcons D, I don't know. Like, I just don't. For some reason, I don't feel great about it. It feels like a game the Falcons win, but it's going to be incredibly close.
Yeah, and maybe that's because we're both from the Southeast, where we've had just a long history of the Falcons finding a way to blow games that they should win easily. And this kind of feels like that situation, but I'm going to roll with the Falcons and close my eyes there. Hot Take City here. He says, hello, coach. Hello, Hot Take. And he's only here to clown the Dallas fans. We're with you, my friend. I would love to know. I'm going to pause for just a second since he mentioned the Dallas fans. Coach, are you at all intrigued in Dallas starting Trey Lance at quarterback?
No, not in the least.
Good
Cooper
answer.
Rush is their best. Cooper Rush is their best option. Well, Cooper Rush won 5 straight. Was it 5 straight? Last time Dak missed significant time. So yeah, I mean, he also came in and let him right down to a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm not ready to buy on the Trey Lance hype. You know, I'm not sure if we have any Trey Lance truthers in here, but I've seen all I need to see. I don't think he's anything special. So we'll just carry right on here. And Moose on the Loose says, hey, fellas, Najee Harris or Amari Cooper in my flex this week. Coach, do you have a preference between Amari or Najee in this situation? Obviously, Amari, since being traded to the Buffalo Bills, has it been what you want it to be, or are you looking to kind of switch to Najee in this situation?
It's actually not as great, to be honest, as I thought it would be. It started out strong, but it's came back to earth a little bit. I'm looking at this matchup right quick. Steelers have the Commanders. Steelers are going to run. I like Najee Harris here, honestly.
I do too.
He's picked it up.
Yeah, and the Commanders, while they are my favorite team, I watch them a whole lot. And, you know, their run defense isn't exactly anything to be too scared of. They've been benefiting a lot from their offense just scoring a ton of points. So teams are having to throw the ball against them. So I think their rush defense is a little bit worse than they're ranked right now. So I would go with Najee in this situation. Predicting Amari Cooper is not going to be fun. I mean, obviously he missed last week. The week before that, he only had 1.3 points. So I'm going to avoid that situation if I can. Disco says, debating between Kelsey or Kittle for my tight end 1 on the week. Who should I consider between the two, or should I look at Ingram, Goddard, or Otton instead, Coach? So let's break down this week for a little bit. We've got Kelsey, who you've already mentioned, the Chiefs taking on who they have this week, Coach? I can't remember what you said.
Broncos.
The Broncos. Thank you. We've got the 49ers taking on the Buccaneers. So Cade Otton's in that matchup too. Evan Ingram or Dallas Goedert. Coach, do you have a certain tight end in this situation that you think can finish the week as the tight end 1? Because that's what Disco's trying to predict right now.
Oh, man. It's hard for me to go against Cade Otton right now. Only because there's not a lot of other options. They've been feeding him the ball because who else is he going to throw the ball to? You know, it's just really hard for me to go away from that guy. He's been getting tons of targets. Baker has no one else to throw the ball to, like Raheem Jarrett or McMillan. I mean, Otton's getting the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Otton has 31 targets in the last 3 weeks with 8 or more catches in every single game. So it's tough not to consider Otton, like you said, just given the situation where he's at. Now, obviously, the matchup with the 49ers, 49ers are a little bit more stingy against tight ends, so not the best matchup. Ingram, for me, I'm going to try and avoid that situation if I can, because the Jags have just not been playing well. And I even told Coach today, I'm a little bit concerned about Trevor's health. I don't know if you saw, but he was limited today. And then they picked up CJ Beathard off of a practice squad today. So just some interesting moves to monitor there with Trevor Lawrence's health. And they kind of led into question his ability to play on Sunday too.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of George Kittle, and he has been playing great. So for me, it's Otton or Kittle, one of those two. Kittle's had a heck of a year. He's been getting in the end zone at an insane rate. That's such a high rate, you kind of feel like it's got to come back down to earth as a whole. That's kind of why it's Otton for me too.
I think for me, Disco, I'm going to go Kelsey, then Otton. That would be my order. 3 would probably be Kittle between this group, just in a vacuum. Between Kelsey's and Otten's just insane target volume. You can't beat that, man. You really can't. Disco adds, look at the splits between of Ingram with Kirk in the lineup and without. Super bullish on Ingram. Hey, man, we are too. We have been two of the biggest Ingram hypers all offseason, I swear. It's been really tough to watch this season because I think between Coach and I, we probably have maybe 50% ownership across all of our leagues. The Ingram hit has been hard for us.
And he's good. The dude is really dang good. Like, your Matt's boy Trevor has not been able to get him the ball enough. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, there's more to that, my friend. More to that. I mean, but regardless, we can debate Trevor another time because we do it enough already. But yeah, I mean, Ingram, he had 10 targets last week, 5 catches, 45 yards. Especially with Kirk being out, I would expect 10 targets again. Taking on Minnesota, I just have concerns about Minnesota giving Trevor Lawrence and this Jaguars offense hell. I mean, Minnesota's 22nd on the season against tight ends, so not the best matchup, not the worst matchup.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Oh, and he does add he has so much Trey Lance exposure.
No, do not do it,
man,
Disco. No.
I hope it works out for you, but I don't think it's gonna, my friend. All right. Flores over on YouTube coach says, what do I do with CeeDee Lamb? That is an excellent question. And I think right now your only option is to hold. If we're talking redraft, certainly it's going to be a little bit tougher to move him because we don't know, how long is he going to be out? What's the offense going to look like without Dak? I told Coach and Tyler last night, I think, that I would be thinking about shutting down CD and Dak if I was the Cowboys, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think we're probably getting to that point in the season. Like in redraft, for instance, I wouldn't get nowhere near CD right now. Dynasty, I would love to have CD on my team moving forward. But right now, you have no choice but to hold him, I'm afraid. Or sell him for cheaper than he's worth.
Yeah. And I wouldn't just sell him if I could for nothing. Like, I would just wait it out. I don't think you have a choice. He's too good when he plays. He's too valuable to your team. So I think you gotta roll with it for now. The tree hugging Hunter Kier coach says drop one: Muth, Tolbert, Hawkinson, McMillan, Tillman, Ray Davis, Downs, Cade Otton, or Addison for Brooks coming off IR. These are my lowest players. Have Davis because I have Cook.
I think it's Tolbert for me.
That's kind of where I'm at too, because I think Addison over Tolbert, Hawkinson over the Muth, but I like kind of having both if I can. I don't know if you have a starting tight end over those guys. Josh Downs, I'm holding. Otton, I'm keeping. It'd probably be the Muth or Tolbert for me.
Yeah,
just because you have.
I'm not getting rid of Tillman.
Yeah, no, I'm keeping Tillman. McMillan, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. But for sure, keep Hawkinson, keep Tillman, keep Davis, keep Downs, keep Otton, keep Addison. So Muth, Tolbert, McMillan. That's probably the three. If you had to put them in order, Coach, what would your order be?
For me, I would drop in McMillan, Tolbert, Muth in that order.
I think I'm Tolbert, McMillan, Muth. I think that's my order.
If it was Dynasty, then it'd be Tolbert, Muth, McMillan. I like McMillan's possibility in the future, maybe.
Okay. While we're parked right here, I do want to ask you one question, Coach. Do you make anything of Jonathan Mingo going to Dallas?
Is that not the weirdest thing? That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, it blows me away. It's like we have to tell our fan base we got a receiver, so we went and got maybe the worst one in the NFL, and then paid a fourth. Now, I know they gave back a seventh. I am blown away. Like, this might be the best deal in the history of David Tepper's ownership for the Panthers.
And my favorite tweet I saw was, "I can't even trade Mingo for a fourth in Dynasty."
No, that's the truth.
It is the truth. Like, you can't get that kind of deal done. So I think that's really funny. But we're going to welcome in Tyler here, guys. Tyler is going to join us now. He is getting logged on. So welcome in, my friend. We are happy to have you here. And how are we doing?
Good, good. I just got off work, ready to talk some football, man.
All right, let's talk some football. Let's jump to our next question from Matthew over on Facebook. He says, Mark Andrews or Hawkinson this week? Likely is ruled out for Baltimore, but Jacksonville has been giving up a bunch of points to the tight end position. So, Tyler, we'll put you on the hot spot right away. Who we going with, Mark Andrews or Hawkinson?
I would probably lean Andrews here. The only reason I say that is because I think we've seen that Jacksonville's defense isn't that great. Number one receiver is. So let's take Andrews and see see if he can outscore Hawkinson, because I'm afraid JJ is going to get all the touchdowns and then it's going to be over because the Jags can't score.
There is that possibility, Coach. Do you have fears of the Jags just absolutely sucking against the Vikings? So you've roasted me on it all day, it feels like. So, Coach, do you have a preference between Hawkinson or Andrews here?
I'll say this. First of all, I like both of these plays a lot this week, mostly because the defenses that they're facing are atrocious. The Bengals have no pass rush whatsoever. I mean, pretty much non-existent.
That's a little bit disrespect to Hendrickson.
Okay, well, they're not getting it done. They're not. I like Andrews.
Sacks.
I like Andrews.
I like Andrews too in this situation. I'm going to give Hawk a little bit more time to get in the flow of things. I think all things considered, he played well. Yes, he only had 7 points for your fantasy team last week with 3 catches for 27 yards. But let's give him a little bit of time to get worked in. Like Tyler said, JJ is going to eat up a lot of this offense just because he's that good. But, with Likely being out, Jacksonville giving up a lot of points right now, and Lamar being on fire, give me Andrews.
Yeah, I mean, 2 of the 3 worst defenses in the AFC.
Yeah. All right, Coach, this one is for you just because I say so. I make the rules here. Flexing Rome Odunze. How do you feel about that? Coach is a big-time Bears fan. We talked a little bit about Rome Odunze off air, so I'll let you rant.
Man, I am a huge Rome Odunze fan right now. The Bears' offense is a disaster. Shane Waldron is a disaster. Caleb Williams is not playing well. Like, if you sit back and you watch the All-22, though, Odunze's open all the time. Like, how he's not getting the ball more is beyond me. Like, the guy is good. You should be trying to buy him anywhere and everywhere you can in fantasy, especially if it's dynasty. Like, the guy's getting open. Quit throwing the ball to Keenan Allen. If something happened where Keenan Allen all of a sudden can't even catch the ball. Like, it is a major problem in Chicago right now. And one of the few guys playing really well is Rome Odunze. Like, I love this dude. He's open all the time. Like, I would flex him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think I'm really comfortable throwing him in the flex as well. One thing about Rome is, while yes, DJ Moore is involved and he's got a little bit of an ankle injury, and then we've got the whole thing with him walking off the field. We can talk about that if you guys want. But, you mentioned Keenan Allen. Rome still has almost 80% of the snaps every single week. So he's out there, he's running routes. And like Coach said, he may not be getting the ball, but man, is he open. Like, he looks good. So I expect things to keep tracking up for Rome. Last week, 7 targets, 5 catches, 104 yards. So pretty good week for him. Tyler, are you comfortable with flexing Rome this week?
Yeah, for sure. I think at worst he's the wide receiver 2 on the team. I think we've seen Keenan he's phased out of the offense a little bit, and Kmet did nothing last week. So I would take the shot on.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that too. Go ahead, Coach.
Think they've gotten so much flack this week on the Kmet thing. I look for Kmet to get some serious target share. That's exactly what happened last time, right?
Yeah, it might be. Sam Laporta tied in week 1 is what Hot Take City says this week. Maybe we would love to see that for Laporta. It's not been the best year, but I'm fine with his talent. Coach, I'll let you speak for just a moment. We had a trade in a league with Laporta, and you were kind of shocked by it a little bit. So, do you have fears on Laporta?
Well, I think Laporta's really good. Like, I just think the Detroit offense has so many good players. There's a lot of mouths to feed, which hurts his fantasy value a little bit. Like, he is one of the top 3 most talented tight ends in the NFL, I think, but there's not enough balls to go around, just to be honest, right now.
Yeah, I mean, on the season, he's currently sitting at tight end 18. Obviously, last year he was tight end 1, so it's a big drop, but there's time for him to make it up. We'll see what happens. 2 weeks ago, he had
And they're
almost
blowing
30
out a
game.
lot of people too.
That doesn't help the situation either. Is this team is just scoring at will, and like you said, everybody's scoring. So it's something to certainly monitor and see what happens going forward. But let's jump to Hot Takes question here. He says, would you sell CMC for Adams, Downs, and Najee? Hurting at depth, and he offered that to me. Tyler, is this a haul that you're comfortable with getting for CMC? Or do you think that, you might be looking for something else?
I think if this is a redraft league, for sure I would do it. That's I think the amount of points you can get out of those 3, especially if you're hurting for the depth. I think that's a good shot. Dynasty, I would definitely do it. Give me the 2 younger players, and I don't want to trust those 2 Achilles coming back after we've already seen him have 2 season-ending injuries, previously. So no thanks.
Yeah, you make a good point too. Of if you're making this type of trade and you need depth, that's about as good as it gets between Adams, Downs, and Najee. But Coach, how do you feel about this trade?
Yeah, I like Downs a lot. Like, Downs is really talented. He looks really good. I like him a lot. I like his future, especially if this is dynasty. The problem with CMC for me is that he's just a pain in the butt to have on your team. Like, he's really good. Like, if you do plays, like, he is scoring and it's awesome. But he's done this too many times where he's just out for long extended periods of time. Like, it's going to drive you crazy. So to me, like, if the best player on the list is CMC. So if you want to roll that way, I totally get it. But I think I would rather have the Downs Najee side.
I think I'm going to roll with the package too. I just pulled up Josh Downs' box score for every single week. Looking at it since week 4, every single week except for once, he's had at least 9 targets. So the guy is involved. He's a slot machine. He just gets open. Great hands, pretty good in space. So I'm going to roll with Josh Downs if I can. I think he's a great firing up in your offense, especially with Flacco being back there. I think he's just going to get peppered with targets. So I'm totally comfortable with this deal. All right, let's say hello to Daniel in London. Hello, my friend. Thank you for being here. I don't even know what time it is in London, but good morning, good afternoon, something like that. We appreciate you being here. He says, would you drop Jawan Jennings for, I'm assuming this is Jameson Williams because I don't imagine Javonte is on the waivers. I'm just guessing. But, Coach, would you drop Jawan Jennings for Jameson Williams?
I would drop Jawan Jennings for either Williams, Jameson or Javonte.
Whatever Williams is there, just take him. Tyler, what about you?
I tend to say if it's Javonte, definitely keep Jennings. If it's JMO, then that's a little bit more of a toss up for me. But for the rest of the season, I think Jennings is going to be at least a wide receiver 2 in the offense, and he's already had a 40-point.
Yeah, the 40-point game he had. Yeah, the 40-point game he had was just wild. It's still hard to believe that even happened. I think for me, I'm going to take either Williams, like Coach said, over Jawan, but I can't blame you if you're going to have that guy on your roster just because the way he blocks, I'm always going to respect him. Like, that dude's just an animal on the outside. Coach, he also adds Ferguson or Gesicki for his roster here. This is a nightmare situation for you.
Well, I'm going Ferguson as long as Cooper Rush is playing quarterback. I'm going Ferguson. Cooper Rush is a competent backup. Like Trey Lance, I'm not convinced he's a competent passer of the football, just to be honest. But Rush came in the other day and was slinging it around a little bit. Now, granted, they were in prevent. He's played good the last time. He won both starts, I think. So, yeah, I'm still – Ferguson's the better player.
Yeah, Gesicki last week, 6 targets, 5 catches,
Mhm.
100 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, really big game where he scored 30 points. The week before that, he had 16 points, 8 targets, 7 catches, 73 yards. So, I mean, it's certainly a question to be had. So, I think there's something there to debate. Now,
Oh yeah, I mean I get it. I totally get it.
I'm kind of with you. I lean almost Ferguson with CD being out. That's just necessity. Like he's the only guy that's going to be in that offense that's a true veteran pass catcher. Like obviously Tolbert's a veteran, but Ferguson's the one with all the experience, all the reps. So I kind of like Ferguson in this situation. Tyler, do you have a preference between these two tight ends?
I think if you're looking rest of season, I would take Ferguson just because if T. Higgins ever decides to come back, we've seen the tight ends kind of fall off there with them concentrating the targets between him and Jamar. If you're looking for this week, I'd probably take Gasecki because I think T is he's doubtful for tomorrow night. So
I'm I'm with you there. That's interesting. Um, Disco says, "Hey Matt, send me a trade in community first." You know, man, I am always down to wheel and deal. Hit me up over there. I've got James Conner. He's on the block probably for a second, something like that. If you've got some interest in some other players, be sure to let me know. I'm happy to deal any vets because this team is completely rebuilding, and I am loaded with picks. So excited to move some of those.
Hit him
But
with an offer right now, Disco. We'll talk him into it.
yeah. Send an offer right now, Disco, and I will see what I can do. And these two goons can try and get me to do a deal here and see what can happen. But I'm not sold they can do it. I don't buy into peer pressure. I'm not known for that. I am totally known for that. All right, Glenn Smith on YouTube says Jaden Daniels or Jalen Hurts. Wow, this is a big time question, and I'm actually really excited to break this one down here for a second. So I'm going to pull up Jaden Daniels box score really quick here,
I'm
and
surprised you don't know it off the top of your head.
I do. I'm just trying to pretend like I don't. Go Manders, baby. Left hand up. Anyways, Coach, since you spoke first, you get to answer the question first. Who are we picking between Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts?
This is a really, really tough, man. These stats are
I know.
interesting. But I'm taking Jalen Hurts. Rushing upside. Jaden Daniels runs, but Hurts. I mean, the Eagles will tush push inside the 5, bro. Like he gets in the end zone more.
It, you know, Coach, I don't want to do this to you, but Jaden Daniels does have more rushing yards on the season, but your last point there saved the day because he gets in the end zone more. I'm just going to throw it to you guys, Coach. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if Tyler, if you've seen it.
Twice as much.
Okay. Well, he saw it. I was going to ask you guys, do you know how many rushing touchdowns he has? He has 8 rushing touchdowns on the year. That is wild. Just wild. Almost as many passing touchdowns. He has 10 passing touchdowns on the season. So for me, my bias is really trying not to come through here by saying Jaden Daniels, but I'm going to do it anyways. It's Jaden Daniels for me. Fire the guy up. We're going to the Super Bowl. He's Super Bowl MVP. I've already called it. So Tyler, why don't you go ahead and give your analysis?
So for me, I think we've had the discussion privately. I don't know if we've done it on a video. It seems like the Jalen Hurts regression is pretty real this year, especially whenever he's missing one of his key wide receivers. Um, for that being said, I tend to kind of lean Jaden Daniels here. Call me biased or like recency bias, whatever you want to say. That's fine, but give me the young guy. He has had a very favorable schedule to start the season. Now, how he does against this second half of the season, playing against Pittsburgh and Philly, and also Tennessee, and then Philly again later in the season. We'll see how he does against those. I think he can overcome it. So we're gonna get 2 games to see, this question specifically, how they kind of compete against each other. But give me the young guy who has proven he can pass the ball around, and throw bombs whenever he needs to.
Well, and Tyler makes an interesting point about the schedule. I think the Eagles have played the 30th toughest schedule, and the Commanders have played the 31st toughest schedule. Maybe part of Jaden Daniels playing so good is that he's been playing against middle school teams. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just kidding. If this was Dynasty, I would take Jaden Daniels for sure. I think
He's
the rest of the
salty.
way I'm going 100%. Rest of the way I would go Jalen Hurts.
That's
So-
fair. I get your point. Go ahead, Tyler.
So my question is too. So I took this mainly from a dynasty perspective. I didn't even think about it really from redraft, although I'd probably take Daniels in both. Don't you think though, like you could probably get a plus on top of Daniels uh, from Jalen Hurts just because of that name and the rushing touchdowns? If you could do that and get a plus, I'd take that side of the deal any day.
I don't know, Glenn. If you're here, let us know if this is a trade offer, or can you imagine this being your start sit decision between Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts? Like, what a privilege that would be. So I'm curious to know there. But yeah, I think, Coach, you kind of smirked a little bit when Tyler said taking him over Hurts in both leagues or both redraft and dynasty. I'm with him. I mean, he's QB3 on the season. The stats back it up. So just go out there and play ball, man. You know, I'm going to roll with him. Looking at his box score, he's only got one bad game, and it was against the Panthers. That's it. Every
Yeah.
other game, he's been
Well,
great.
Honestly, I'd love to fire up either of these guys. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
what a
We're splitting
decision.
hairs.
Like, yeah, if either guy's on my team, if I'm starting that guy. So if you have those two each week, start whichever one's playing the worst defense and be tickled to death about it.
Yeah. I do want to pause real quick, guys. We've got a question over on X that's not going to be able to be on the screen. So you'll have to listen carefully. So put your listening ears on. It says, I was offered Tyreek and Nick Chubb for Jonathan Taylor and Cedric Tillman. Would have Tyreek in addition to Nico and AJ Brown, Chubb and Brees, Tracy, Chase Brown at running back. Should I do this trade? So Tyreek, Chubb for Jonathan Taylor and Cedric Tillman. Are you guys interested in adding Tyreek and Chubb to this roster, or would you rather have Jonathan Taylor and Cedric Tillman? Coach, I will start with you.
It's redraft, right?
Yes.
Does he specify that? Gosh, man, it is hard for me to. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but it's really hard for me to not go with Cedric Tillman's side of this right now. Like, there's no one in there that's taking targets away from him. Like, I don't know, man. I want a piece of Cedric Tillman the rest of the way if I can get it.
Yeah, we highlighted earlier Cedric Tillman in the 3 games that matter for the last 3 weeks. He has 30 targets, 8 catches, 7 catches, 6 catches, 3 touchdowns, over 75 yards in every single game. So, I mean, he is just out there producing, whether it's because of necessity or skill. I don't care. I'm kind of with Coach. I kind of want to ride with that. I don't really care to have Chubb on my team. Things haven't looked great. I've got several shares of him in best ball, but we'll just have to see what comes with that. But Tyler, do you have a preference on this deal here?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he say he had both AJ Brown and Nico? Was it Nico that he had coming back as well?
He has Nico, AJ Brown, and then he has Brees, Tracy, and Chase Brown.
See, that's close to me. I tend to kind of lean the JT and Tillman side. As much as I would like Tyreek to be the superstar with Tua, obviously a concussion and Tua's out, and then Tyreek's back to 10 points a game maybe. Chubb, he hasn't really looked the same, I don't feel like, since his injury.
Yeah,
He
Chubb is definitely
still looked
struggled.
good playing at a high level. Yeah, if you're giving me JT and then Cedric Tillman with the targets, like we said, I'd probably take those just from a more safe baseline, and then you've still
Yeah,
got that
it's a
upside
solid
kinda there
floor
too.
right now, you know? I mean, if you're going to tell me that I can get a guy that can start and have 10 targets just automatically, that's a great floor. So I'm perfectly comfortable with that, especially with the Browns, who are probably going to be trailing in every single game. So, and let's not forget they've got Jameis Winston back there who will just say, let's throw it down there. We'll figure it out. So I'm excited for that. It's going to be interesting to see what Tillman can do going forward. But we appreciate your question over on X, and we'll be sure to carry on. Thanks, Andrew. But let's jump to our next one here, guys. From Daniel over on YouTube says, "Hello, guys. Roster Coleman or Jennings?" Tyler, are you? I think we're all going to go Coleman here, maybe. But I'm curious where you fall, Tyler, since you said Juwan Jennings would be your wide receiver 2 in San Fran.
So it's split to me. The only reason I say that, Coleman does have the wrist injury. It's tough. I know that Josh Allen is obviously the better quarterback, and they have been rolling pretty well. But I think Jennings is going to be necessary in the offense. If Debo and Kittle, they're both prone to missing games at times. And let's keep in mind Coleman's still a rookie too. So he's got competition there between Shakir and also Amari. So give me Jennings. If something happens that Debo or Kittle miss, he's gonna have a higher baseline anyway and higher upside. If they don't miss and he's playing the Ayuk role, we've seen that happen to where that player, that role can still be great for fantasy. So for this season, obviously in Dynasty, it's Coleman. And
yeah, Coach, where do you fall between Coleman and Juwan Jennings here?
I'm Coleman. I'm going Coleman here. There's still a tiny bit of me that's holding out a little bit of hope for Ricky Pearsall. I don't know. I doubt it, but a guy can dream. Just because he's on my team and I drafted him, I thought I got a free swing at that, and I don't know.
You love getting that first round wide receiver later in drafts. I mean, I can't blame you there.
But I think Coleman.
No, go ahead, Coach. Sorry.
No, Coleman's for me. That's all.
Okay. I think for me, I'm going with Coleman, but Coleman still remains a sell for me. I know that's kind of a hot take. I'm just still not sold on what he actually is. I don't know if he has what it takes to be an outside X or to be the wide receiver 1 for the Bills. So I kind of expect them to still go add a name, whether that's signing someone like T. Higgins in the off seasons, which would be absolutely so hard for me to stick to my new vow that I will not have T. Higgins on my team anymore, just because I'm over playing that game. But we'll just have to see. Tip Major is in here, guys. How are we doing, Tip? Appreciate you being here. He asked us, is that Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels question a redraft or dynasty question? Don't know. We just kind of said it from both sides. So if you're still in here, Tip, let us know your thoughts. What are you thinking between the two, whether that's redraft or dynasty? We'd like to hear from you. It's been a while. We hope you're doing well. Tip is a great follow out there, guys, so be sure to give him a follow. And let's jump to Trone Force. Trone Force has been a regular here, guys. He says, would you trade JSN and Madison for Josh Jacobs? It's a PPR league. His running backs are Barkley, Monty, Mostert, and Madison. Wide receivers are Tyreek, Kupp, McLaurin, D-Hop, Mooney, and JSN. So, JSN and Madison for Josh Jacobs. Coach, are you doing that?
Hang on, I was just studying his roster here. Of course, it's a heck of a time to trade JSM. He had a game of his life this past week.
Best game of his career. Scored what, 38 fantasy points?
Yeah, like I really like your running back room a lot, honestly.
So is your fear that you're almost?
Jacobs would move ahead of Mostert and Madison, obviously. Jacobs and Monty are kind of a coin flip for me, to be honest, most weeks. I'd be concerned that some of the older guys that you've got there in your wide receiver room kind of flop down the stretch here. That would be my concern. I would probably hold JSN.
Yeah.
Based on this roster.
That's a tough one here for me. I'm really stuck. Tyler, I'm interested.
Jacobs is the best player, right? Jacobs is the best player, clearly by a lot.
This year, he's the best player. Completely agree.
But you don't need. I don't know. Your running back room looks pretty good to me.
I think so too. I don't know if you're subtracting points, because the big question for me is: does JSN crack this lineup, or would Jacobs crack the lineup? That's the question you're asking. I mean, you're starting McLaurin based on how he's playing. You're probably starting Cooper Cup, I would assume. If Tua's playing, Tyreek is in the mix. Now that D-Hop has the 2 touchdown game, he's in the mix. Mooney's been probably the most underrated wide receiver in the entire league. So, man, it's tough to see the situation where he's going to crack the lineup. But like you said, the running back room's good too. Tyler, do you have a preference on the JSN side or the Josh Jacobs side?
So I'm a big JSN believer. I have been since he came out of Ohio State. I would actually take Jacobs here, though. The reason I say that, he automatically slots in as your RB3. He's better than Mostert. Mostert may get goal line touches, but Achan is the main guy there right now. Um, Also, kind of piggybacking off what you said as far as JSN cracking the lineup, I think with Tua there, I think Tyreek is a lock every week. I think Cooper Cup is probably a lock every week. Especially if Puka's not going to be there. Um, Mooney, like we said, underrated. He's been a target hog all year. So at that point, if you're starting 3 wide receivers, there's your 3 starts. Then you get Terry McLaurin and D Hop. That and Josh Jacobs is probably a toss up to me. Whereas if you have, Mostert and Madison as your running back, 3 and 4, I would much rather have Jacobs and have the depth at running back because we've seen how easily running backs can get hurt. And I think you've got decent enough wide receiver depth with some stars in there that I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there too, Tyler. Of you're essentially slotting in Jacobs as being your RB3 over Mostert and dropping your arguably wide receiver 4 or 5, depending on how we want to break that down for the week or the situation. So I think I'm going to go Jacobs here too. Coach, you look like you had a point. So go ahead.
Well, I'll say this. This is our boy Tron is on here every week. Big shout out to him. And this dude puts together elite lineups like every week. Big shout out to this guy, man. Like, we got to talk about how you're putting together these teams because I'm jealous.
Jerome is just dominating out here. I don't remember who he had on that one team, but I'm pretty sure he had the entire first 2 rounds. It was unbelievable. I don't know how you did it, my friend, but props to you. So we'll watch
No
you keep
doubt.
rolling through and just dominating fantasy. Let's jump to Frenzy here over on YouTube. He says 10-man PPR league, trade Amon-Ra and James Conner for Saquon. Wide receivers are Jamar, Amon-Ra, McLaurin, Reed, Mooney. RBs are Derrick Henry, James Conner, Chase Brown, and Brian Robinson Jr. Tyler, you're shaking your head no. So I think what I'm about to hear from you say is that Amon-Ra is just too valuable here.
I think he's too valuable. I also think James Conner gives you enough production, though. I mean, yeah, Saquon is going ridiculous, and he probably has the most iconic move by a running back we've seen at least in the last decade. If not,
Hang
I
on.
don't even know how long.
Do you mean the reverse hurdle where he looked through the back of his head and jumped through the time warp and
Yeah,
made
and then
someone miss?
and then you watch the defender turn around and be like, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that." Like yeah, that one. Um, so to me, Amon-Ra and James Conner, I get Saquon is valuable, but Amon-Ra is still your wide receiver 2 on this team. You've got Reed and Mooney, and then McLaurin. You've also got Derrick Henry, and then Chase Brown and Brian Robinson are good depth pieces for you. But I would just hold on to what I have here. I don't. I get trying to go all out for it, but I don't think I could trade Amon-Ra for Saquon there.
Yes, Saquon RB3 on the year, almost hit 1,000 yards rushing already, 6 touchdowns. He's just playing really, really good football right now. Coach, where do you lean on this trade right here?
Well, I do think Amon-Ra is too good. Like, you can't get rid of Amon-Ra. But now I will say this, like, if it was Dynasty and you wanted to take a shot on Saquon the next, not just this year, but the next couple, now hear me out. I'm one of the few guys that thinks there's still some value in that elite running back. Like, that makes your team elite. Those guys that produce every week. Like, Saquon's going to produce every single week if he's healthy and he's out there. James Conner's old. Like, so to me in Dynasty, it would sort of be an Amon-Ra for Saquon. I personally would still hang on to Amon-Ra. But I'm just saying I can understand that other side a little bit there.
Coach, I have a question.
Considering the age of his running back room.
I have a question for you, Coach, and you might have already saw it, and if you did, you can cheat or you can answer it and look really smart. If you had to guess, how many games does Saquon have this year, with more than 30 points?
I don't know. Tell me.
3.
3.
So
yeah.
3 of
I
the
knew
9 weeks,
one or two.
he scored more than 30 points. One of those weeks, he scored 28. So
That's what I'm
almost
saying.
half of the season.
There's one guy acting like this trade makes a little bit of sense here. That's all I'm saying.
I'm giving you credit. I'm giving you credit. Like there's something to be said for plugging in a guy and saying there's a 50% chance I win because of him, and that's it.
And there's
that's what you're doing.
only like 5 running backs like that. You know, that gives
Yeah.
you a chance every week.
Yeah, it's really limited on who's going to produce like that, and I think you make a great point. I'm going to rock with both of them here. I'm rolling with Amon-Ra and James Conner if I had this deal offered to me.
Let me
but
ask
like
this.
Coach said,
Hang on.
sure.
Who do you prefer? Who do you like more, Amon-Ra or Jamar?
In Dynasty, or are we talking
both.
just the rest of the year?
Both.
In Dynasty,
It's kind of closer than people think, right?
I think it's the same tier, so I think we're splitting hairs. Like, what does your team need? Does it need stability? Does it need the big play? In a vacuum, give me Chase. I think Amon-Ra is really, really good. He's quietly wide receiver 8 on the year. I feel like a lot of people have kind of looked at this season as being a little bit of a letdown, but he's playing fine. But that's just my opinion. Coach, Tyler, who do you have as your preference between Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra?
I tend to take Chase there. Like you said, Amon-Ra's wide receiver 8. It's been very quiet. But we just talked about earlier how the Lions have so many mouths to feed already. In the in the Bengals offense, you've got T. Higgins, who's always hurt, apparently. And then you've now got Gesicki and Chase Brown. So I'll take the easy number one option there versus
Tyler really quick.
Well, the
Sorry.
T. Higgins thing has played a major part in this, right? The T. Higgins thing has played a huge part in Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is really good, but there's no one taking any targets from him right now because T. Higgins just can't get on the field.
Yeah, and he adds that he has Jalen Hurts too. So does that help or hurt anything? But go ahead, Tyler.
Well, I will say too, as much as we talk about T. Higgins, nobody taking the targets from Chase at that point. We are talking about when T. Higgins is on the field, Jamar actually plays better fantasy wise. Like we've seen that for whenever you saw the start of the year where T was out, Jamar, he wasn't necessarily struggling, but his ceiling wasn't as high. Now when T comes back and they stretch that defense out, here you have Jamar finding open spaces and he's got a little bit more room to move. So I think that could help him, later on down the road too. I just think that defenses are going to key in on both of these guys a little more. And I think that the Lions have more weapons than the Bengals do. So I would probably just take Jamar anyway.
Yeah. I think that's a really good question, though, Coach, of who do you prefer?
Well, then could you just do Jamar? Would you ever consider doing Jamar for Saquon straight up?
Dynasty, no. Redraft, man.
Close, right? Close.
He's the wide receiver 1 on the year, though. Like, that's really tough. I think you're right. It's pretty close. My gut says hold on to Jamar here, especially with his running back room, because who did he have again? Let me pull it up. He had Derrick Henry, James Conner, Chase Brown, and Brian Robinson Jr.
Just food for thought. Saquon has Chase has wide receiver 1, but Saquon has scored 9 points more than him on the season.
You said exactly what I was about to say. I was about to say he's got more points on the season, and my head immediately went to, well, shoot, what if I started Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley in my lineup? And then on top of that, I'm starting McLaurin, Amon-Ra, and Reed and Mooney as a possible flex. Like, my word, that is a unit, man. That is a unit, Coach. You deserve some claps there, some snaps. You've got the guts to do that trade, so I'm okay with that. I think. Let's jump to Trone here. He says, "Do I drop someone or go Bear at kicker this week?" His roster is Jaden Daniels, Tyreek, Cup, Barkley, Monty, Taysom, McLaurin, Mooney, D Hop, JSN, Mostert, Madison, Njoku, and Tua. Um,
I mean, my
is there
question
a
would be
name
who
on?
played kicker last week? You know what I'm saying? Who was your kicker last week? No, I'm being
Trone.
serious. Like, we dropped, yeah, go ahead.
My maybe the point is or maybe what he did, and I did this in one league too. I dropped a kicker after he played, and I picked up Tua because Tua was on waivers. So I mean, maybe Tua was out there.
Well,
I don't know.
Or his kicker's on a bye, right?
True, yeah. I
If
mean,
that's the case, I would drop the kicker
I mean,
and stream a kicker.
but what I'm assuming he did here is he already dropped the kicker, and he's having to decide: do I drop someone on this list? Yeah, he dropped the kicker to pick up Taysom Hill for Njoku's bye. So the question is does he roll with this unit or does he drop one of these guys and pick up a kicker? I don't know. One thing to keep in mind.
If you're dropping one, who are you dropping?
That's what I was about to ask. Tyler, does a name stick out here to you? My mind is torn between Madison, Taysom Hill, and Mostert, and I don't know what's the best order there.
I tend to go with Madison is probably the one I drop. Another thing I do find interesting, Matt, you may know this off the top of your head. Do you know when the Commanders' bye is?
Ooh, it's in December. I believe it is not until the first week of December, though.
So it's week 14. So that's their bye. I'm trying to see. Here's my thing. This is where I understand Tua being on waivers, right? I understand you want to go pick him up. I've done it in the league. I get that. You also have Jaden Daniels. So to me, unless you're going to hold on to Tua for that long, I don't see really the need to have the two quarterbacks. That could be something you entertain too, because if you need to just stream somebody that 1 week that Jaden Daniels is out, you can probably find a stream that's pretty suitable for that week. Now, obviously, me being the stack person, I get it, having Tyreek. I don't think you can really drop Taysom, not right now. The only reason I say that is because Njoku is on bye. So he's already got to play Taysom Hill. And I don't really want to drop Mostert. If I'm dropping anybody other than Tua, it's probably Madison. That would be my thing there.
Yeah, he adds it's a 12-man league, hoarding the good QBs. Coach, do you have a preference on who you're dropping? I think I lean dropping Mostert over Madison. Just I feel like Madison is the necessity in Las Vegas. Mostert right now, he hasn't really done anything to help you all season. He's got one good game where he had 16 points and he scored 2 touchdowns in that game. So I don't know how good you are at math, but that's not great for his production.
Well, I kind of feel like with Mostert, he's going to have another really good game somewhere. The problem is when he does, you're going to have him on your bench because you don't trust him enough. And I wouldn't have him in either. That's my point. Madison, to me, it would be Madison then Mostert. Excuse me, Mostert and then Madison. Those are the two guys. Like, I do understand the point. Like, me and Matt have this conversation a lot about Tua. Like, if something happens to Jaden Daniels, I want to make sure I've got the next best quarterback on my roster ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't typically carry 2 quarterbacks in single QB leagues or redrafts. The league that I'm in where I picked up 2 off waivers, it's kind of the same situation. I've got an upcoming bye. I'm trying to guarantee wins because I'm trying to make the playoffs. It's a really competitive league. So I just went ahead and bought Tua while I can because I think I got to start him next week. I can't remember what week it is, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But Steve on Facebook says, "What's up, fellas? Good show as always. Thanks for being here, Steve. We really appreciate you for checking in on us. And we will continue to carry on, everyone. Frenzy adds, this is a good one to sit down and break it down for a second. He says, what about Amon-Ra and Brian Robinson for Justin Jefferson? That's tough for us because I think the three of us collectively agree that Justin Jefferson is probably the best player in the NFL that doesn't throw the football. I know I think that. I believe Tyler thinks that. I don't know about Coach. He can speak about that in a second. But I do think that Jefferson is a tier above Amon-Ra and kind of in a tier by himself. I think that I would probably be comfortable with paying this price, but it would be dependent on my team. If we're talking about this 10-man team up here that you have, I would not feel great about having Derrick Henry, James Conner, and Chase Brown as my only three running backs, but that's just me. Tyler, how do you feel about Amon-Ra and Brian Robinson for Justin Jefferson?
I do think it's really interesting. I think anytime you can have a team that has both Jamar and Justin Jefferson, you're already like starstruck at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, you did make a good point. Derrick Henry, James Conner, Chase Brown. If that's my running back room and that's all I can get, I'm not super happy with that just because James Conner always misses a few games every year. I don't think he's missed any yet. So that could come down the second half. And Chase Brown has looked good so far. They just traded for Khalil Herbert. I don't think that impacts things a lot, but you never know with the offense. So
Yeah. And I mean, maybe you sell one of those other wide receivers like Mooney or Reed, maybe McLaurin. But I'm probably going to try and hold on to all three of those if I can, just given how they're playing. Coach, how do you feel about getting Justin Jefferson for Amon-Ra and Brian Robinson?
I'm gonna hold. I would rather have Justin Jefferson. Sorry. He's wide receiver 2 between Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson on either side of him. But both of those guys have played one additional game than him, so he's really pretty much wide receiver 1. So yeah, Justin Jefferson for me. Brian Robinson is not enough to sway me if I'm the Jefferson owner.
Yeah, I would agree, man. Like Justin Jefferson is just so dang good. Like every time he plays, I'm like, yep, that's why he's the best player. But Coach, I do want to ask you, so I can not put words in your mouth. Do you believe he's the best non-quarterback football player in the league?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
There
Now
you go.
Saquon's making a run for that right now, but yeah,
This
it's
Saquon
Jefferson
love
for me.
coming out of left field this week. Just really,
Wow.
just that's striking me, man. I can't believe it. I think you should go and make an offer in Ultimate. If I were you, I would.
I need to do something.
I think you should. I don't know who has them, but I would go make a move if you can. Let's hit Franco's question here, guys. He says, "Am I starting Marvin Harrison this week or Roma Dunze?" That's a good question, Coach. I'll start with you. You've kind of been a little bit critical of Marvin Harrison thus far this season. It's not been the best experience if you're the Marv owner. As far as it goes for Roma Dunze, certainly looks to be playing better. He's always open, is what it feels like. I don't think he's getting the ball as much as he probably should. But Coach, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to ease up on this Marvin Harrison thing either. And I'll just be honest. Like I think Marvin Harrison is going to end up being a wide receiver 2, 3 kind of guy. Like he's not going to. And most of that's the hype that was so high for him. I'm not saying that he's a bad player, but we expected him to be the best receiver when he out of this class immediately, and he just isn't. I don't know that he will be. I could totally be wrong on that, but he just doesn't look like it out there right now. Rome looks really good. They're facing the Patriots. Cardinals have the Jets. Cardinals at home. Bears at home. I really like. I think I'm going with Rome this week. Like Marvin Harrison seems to have no explosion to me. Rome's starting to produce more and more. I'm going with Rome.
Tyler, what about you?
man, I have a really hard time with this. I honestly, I'm trying to see. So, who did you say the Bears play, Coach?
Patriots,
Patriots.
who are pretty good
And
defensively.
that's pretty tough. I, I think I just take Marv. Honestly, I get wanting to start Rome, and I think he is starting, to get a little bit more comfortable in the offense and get that chemistry with Caleb. but I'll take Marv. There's nobody wide receiver wise that's competing with Marvin for targets. He does have Trey McBride and James Conner, but if you're going to pick somebody, what happens if Odunze disappears again for a week because we think Keenan Allen or Komet, gets the targets? I'd rather not play that game. So
It's a good point. I mean, it's tough just because Rome, he played well last week with his 16 points. Week before that, he had 8.4, and then it was 3 straight games of nothing that really helped you. But on the flip, I mean, Marvin has kind of been the same way of, are you going to get the Marvin that's going to help you, or are you going to get the Marvin that's going to hurt you? So this is certainly a tough situation that I don't believe a lot of people thought we would be in. I mean, Marvin was drafted really, really high, and he's so far not paid off those expectations. I mean, I do want to say I don't think we should discredit the fact that he's wide receiver 23 on the season as a rookie. That's still something to, be impactful and certainly fantasy relevant. There's time to grow. Rome, on the other hand, is wide receiver 59 on the season, so obviously not as great.
Mhm.
But the price you paid for Marv was just so dang high. I think for this week, I'm with Tyler. I'm going to start Marvin Harrison, but I'm closing my eyes. I don't feel great about it.
oh yeah, it's
Well,
not
and
a confident start at all.
Yeah.
well, and Marvin Harrison had the one gigantic game week 2. That's
33 points.
really, yeah. I mean, that's a third of his total on the year almost. So, I mean, I don't know. You could be right with either one of these guys, or dead wrong with both of them.
In all the weeks where Marvin has been beneficial to your team has been the weeks that he scored. So he scored in week
Mhm.
8, he scored in week 4, he scored in week 3, and he scored in week 2 twice. So those weeks he had double-digit points. Every other week, single digits. Go ahead, Coach.
Now there is some concern. Has to be some concern in Chicago over all this DJ Moore stuff the last 2 days, that they're going to go out of their way to try to get him the ball this week. They clearly have a disgruntled star that they paid a lot of money to in the off season that they're going to try to get the ball to. I have a feeling this week, so that would concern me a little bit. And Marvin really has. I mean, there's a whole lot of nothing out there in the wide receiver core for Arizona.
Yeah, the squeaky wheel has a tendency to get the grease, as they say. So
Mhm.
I certainly think that there's a little bit of something there and something to be said for having DJ Moore get a little bit more involvement this week, but we'll just have to see. Certainly, the Bears' offense is something to watch and keep looking at for the coming weeks. But good.
He'd get more involved if he didn't walk off the field in the middle of the play.
Ooh, so now we're on the subject. So let's just go ahead and talk about it. How concerned, Coach, did you? You're the Bears fan. I'm sure you've watched and looked at more than the two of us combined. Did you like his response to the reason why he walked off the field? Of he was already out of bounds, so he's out of the play, and his ankle was hurt, so he's like, I'm just gonna go sit down.
No, you just don't do that. You just don't. Just stand there, let the play finish, and then move on. I don't know. But the bottom line is DJ Moore's one of our best players. We got to get him the ball some more. We're gonna have to come up with some. We got to. No, I'm done. I'm done talking about
it. We're moving on. All right. Well, as we're wrapping up here, we just want to appreciate everybody who's been in here. If you are still watching, please be sure to throw your question in the comments, and we will answer all of them until we leave. We've got about another 15 minutes before we wrap up. So if you're here, throw your questions in the comments. We'll certainly answer those. And then if we don't get any more questions, then we'll probably finish out by talking about a few more contending pieces that we'd be adding to our rosters. But let's hit, of course, Jelly of the Month, who I'm still rolling with. Jalapeno Peach is the jelly. That's just my opinion. But 3 wide receiver PPR league. My running back 5, 6 are Sharp and Roschon. Drop 1 to pick up Ricky Pearsall for wide receiver 5, since Waddle has been a bust at wide receiver 4. Now, Coach, you mentioned earlier that you have Pearsall all over the place. Are you going to drop 1 to pick up Ricky Pearsall here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It wouldn't bother me a bit to drop Roschon and pick him up, just to be honest. I don't know, Roschon. Roschon's been disappointing. Beyond that, I don't know. I've found it hard to believe that Khalil Herbert for the Bears didn't get more touch than Roschon did. As I think Khalil Herbert has proven he was serviceable. But yeah, I wouldn't, especially in a redraft, I wouldn't bother dropping either one of them, but especially Roschon.
Yeah, I think I'm going to drop Roschon in this situation. I mean, like you said, he's not been helpful at all. The only weeks he scored fantasy points are the weeks he scored touchdowns. And frankly, these box scores they're hilarious. Like week 4, he scored a touchdown and he had 8.6 points. So 6 of them were the touchdown. Week 5, he had 2 touchdowns, 14.5 points. 12 of those points were the touchdowns. And then in week 8, he had 6.6 points with a touchdown. So he is not helping you unless he scores. And if he scores, he's still usually underwhelming. But Tyler, are you dropping Sharp or Roschon in this situation?
I definitely wouldn't drop Sharp. I would keep him with Kenneth Walker being out. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to drop him, I don't think.
It's a good point.
Roschon, like we said, he's not really cracking your lineup at this point. Take a shot on Pearsall if he gets involved. Cool. If not, maybe you find another wide receiver on the waiver wire that maybe they're producing or have a shot that week.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, my friend. Well, let's jump to Leo's question here. So, should I start Josh Downs or Brian Thomas Jr. this week? Who would have thought we were answering this question? That's so interesting to me. But Tyler, as being the resident Colts fan in this situation, I'm going to let you pick between Josh Downs or Brian Thomas Jr.
Oh boy.
Who do the
Man.
Colts have?
They're playing Buffalo this week.
Yeah.
And then the Jags, they play
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Correct. Yeah.
I'm probably gonna take Downs. That may surprise. But I've seen several people say it online. I'm not necessarily opposed to this thought, but I do think Downs may be our best wide receiver.
I think he's your best wide receiver.
I'm just gonna say that. So I also think Brian Thomas Jr. is the best wide receiver on his team. That being said, he also has Evan Ingram, who is a target hog, who always gets his targets from Trevor Lawrence. And while I don't necessarily think, either play is great, I would rather not play the Vikings defense after watching them last week. And I would rather try to go against the Bills personally.
Yeah. Coach, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's Downs for me too. Like, I don't love either matchup. I don't love either offense. I don't love either quarterback. Buffalo's just slightly worse of a defense than Minnesota. That's literally the only reason I chose Downs.
That's fair. I will say this much. While Minnesota's defense has been very impressive and they're wreaking havoc on, tight ends and quarterbacks and running backs, against wide receivers, they are the second easiest matchup to score points for. So I think there is a little bit of something there for Brian Thomas Jr. to just break one play because that's all it takes. And he's done it almost every single week. Like, he has been really, really good. And almost every single week he's connected with Trevor on some sort of deep ball. I mean, he's wide receiver 11 on the season. Wide receiver 11. So he's been really beneficial, really helpful for your lineup. While I do think Josh Downs is a buy for me in whatever format you're playing, don't care what it is. I think he's creeping into, I'd say he's probably a top 24 wide receiver in Dynasty for me. I think he's that good. I think Pittman, while Coach really likes Pittman and we think he's a pretty good talent, the situation has been the best for him. And I think Downs has an opportunity to take some of that workload and really turn it into something. But I'm going to go with Brian Thomas here just as the explosive play because I think that's possible that he can break one because it just takes one play for him. All right, let's jump to Willie's question here over on YouTube. Says, I just traded Noah Brown and Will Dissly for Jake Ferguson. That is the most coach trade I've ever read in my entire life. What do you think I could pick up and get a possible trade for Evans? Coach, I'll let you start us off here since you are the local Jake Ferguson believer here. First, let's start. What do you feel about this trade?
Well, the Jake Ferguson thing took a bit of a hit with Dak out, to be honest. But I mean, I don't know. Cooper Rush may be just as fine.
I think it's
when
an
it comes
upgrade.
to Ferguson, probably. What running back wide receiver do you think I could pick up to get a possible trade for Evans? I'm confused.
So I think he's saying that, he's made this one trade for Jake Ferguson. What running back or wide receiver could he go and get for trading Mike Evans? First let's look. Is Mike Evans going to play this week? I didn't see anything today. I'll vet that really quick. He did not practice today.
Yeah, it says he didn't practice.
So, he's on waivers. Excuse me. He has. Yeah, he says he's on waivers. What running back do you think I could get?
Is the running back on?
Yeah, who is on waivers, Willie? Let us know who's on waivers so that way we can kind of walk through what you've got there, and then go ahead, Coach.
No, go ahead. I don't know.
Yeah, let us know clarify this for us, Willie, and we can kind of walk through that with you. And while you do that, we'll hit Franco's question here. It says, would you do this trade, Brian Thomas Jr. and Dobbins for Rome and Gibbs? Tyler, it looked like you shook your head no. That's pretty quick. You're not going to trade Brian Thomas and Dobbins for Romes and Gibbs?
No, I'm a big Gibbs believer. I think he's probably the best player in the trade, but BTJ, like you said, wide receiver 11, he's been rolling on the year. And Dobbins, although he started the year off hot and is kind of cooled recently, he's still the workhorse there. I'll take the production that I'm going to get out of those two versus having to hope that Rom's going to come into form later this year.
I'm not going to lie, Tyler. When you said no and shook your head, it surprised me. You might be the biggest Gibbs believer that I know. So that kind of caught me off guard there. But I think your analysis is spot on. The difference between Brian Thomas Jr. and Rome is pretty big for this season. If we're talking about Coach, what do you think about this trade here between Brian Thomas Dobbins for Rome and Gibbs?
I think it needs some context. Like, what's the rest of the roster look like? I think that matters, especially here. Your running back room needs some bolstering. Then I would go with the Gibbs side of this, right? Like, how deep is your wide receiver room? Like, this just needs more context for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, context certainly helps. So if you're still here, Franco, you can throw the context in there. Let us know who's on your team, and we are happy to walk through those and kind of hit your question from there. But Willie adds, so who do you think I could pick up to get a possible trade for Evans, a running back on waivers to pick up to trade for Evans? So he was wanting to go and get Mike Evans. Is there a running back that's on waivers that you can go and get? I'm not sure that you're going to be able to get something done with that. I mean, that's tough because you're going to have to be able to get the Evans manager to agree to that. I mean, if you send us your team, we can certainly walk through about players that you might have to go through to trade for Mike Evans. But it's going to be tough with a waiver claim unless you're the priority claim. But I imagine your waivers have already run, and that's the only way you have any sort of advantage on waivers over the other manager. Guys, do you have any different take on that? Go ahead, Tyler.
So I kind of took a different approach with the question. So I was looking at rankings. So in a redraft PPR league, Mike Evans is sitting at wide receiver 27 on the year. Now, granted, he's been out a few games. That could probably be higher. So what I did was I was just scrolling through to see people who I thought may be on waivers that are in the same range. Darius Slayton, he's wide receiver 33. Demarcus Robinson, if he is on your waivers, that might be your best option. But the thing is all these players are on waivers though. So if the guy that has Evans, if he had one of these players already, unless he just can't drop Mike Evans, he would have already picked him up. That's the issue.
Yeah. And he adds, what about Khalil Herbert? I'm not. I, I don't know what to make of Khalil Herbert. I do think the Bengals adding him says something. I think I told Coach, maybe I told both of these guys earlier in the week, that I do think there's a world where Khalil Herbert's going to end up being involved. I think it says a little bit about their belief in Chase Brown that they went and added someone else. But Coach, do you have anything to add on what Tyler said?
No, I mean, I don't. Khalil Herbert doesn't move the needle for me. I think he also is just going to share the backfield with maybe
Yeah. You're hoping for a
Chase Brown.
touchdown.
Share it at best, right? Because they may even just be flat backing him up. Like I would rather have Evans. Like I think I do like that. I thought if I'm trying to go get Evans, like he's a guy that could really help you down the stretch here. The way
Agreed.
Baker's been throwing it, so
I
Completely
do think too. I think that trade or like for Khalil Herbert, I looked at it as them adding depth. That's all I saw because Zach Moss went on IR with a neck injury. He's probably not coming back the rest of the year, and you can't just go into the playoffs with hopefully, let's say that, with Chase Brown as your running back, and then is Chris Evans still there? Is he? We got Captain America on the bench. Is he still there?
He's there, but I don't think he's anything. I think them adding it, 100% agree. That's a depth move. That's the team trying to bolster for the playoffs. But I did read where his first day he spent most of it walking through special teams. Now, whether that's because it was his first day and he had been in the building for like 30 minutes, maybe. But I'm not certain what to really make of it. My counter to the Zach Moss point would be that Zach Moss had almost half the snaps. So he's certainly involved and he was playing a lot. So they definitely need a body and they need someone to go out there. But we've got a few more questions, guys. So we'll roll through those here. Martin on YouTube says, trade King Henry for Jamar Chase and Kyron. Our playoffs start week 14 and Henry is on bye. That is certainly a really interesting situation to be in. Not having King Henry for the bye week, that's a tough situation there. Jamar and Kyron, I mean, those are two big name players. We've already said Jamar is the wide receiver 1. I don't know what Kyron is on the year. I'll look that up really quick. But Coach, would you be doing this trade?
A total 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think you only have a choice. You don't have a choice. Wait, say it. Okay, yeah.
Kyron's wide receiver 6.
I'll run back 6. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Because if you don't, you're going to lose in week 14. I don't know if you have a choice.
Tyler, you in agreement there?
I would do it just because of getting Jamar and Kyron. I think that's pretty easy to me. However, I will say if your roster is strong enough, like let's say at this point you have there's no competition, like or no doubt that you're going to be in the playoffs. Like let's see, we're in week 10 of our leagues.
Yeah,
week
this
10.
is week 10. Let's
say he's 8-1 or 9-0. If he's that far ahead of the competition, he can sacrifice one game. I think that would be okay if you wanted to hold on to Henry, but I would take.
But his problem is that's week 1 of the playoffs. So assuming you have a bye week, then I think maybe you don't have to deal with that situation.
Well, I think it depends because I think in most of the leagues I'm in currently, week 1 of the playoffs is week 15 for me. I think that's what I'm looking at. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I think you're probably right, but he just says his playoffs start in week 14, so it could be a deeper league. Maybe they do a 14-team play, or like an 8-man playoff or something like that. So might change things, but either way, I think that's a really good deal of getting Chase and Kyron for King Henry. That's certainly getting a haul back.
Yeah, I don't want. My question would be, why would the other owner do this?
That's a great question. Maybe his roster is like Trone Force.
maybe he has to buy a win.
That's true too. No, if you're trying to buy a win, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Franco adds, my wide receiver room is pretty heavy. He's got JSN, Tank Dell, Marvin, CD. Running back room is currently Josh Jacobs, Tyrone Tracy, and Dobbins. So I was looking to upgrade it. Would you then do that trade of Brian Thomas Jr. and Dobbins for Rome and Gibbs? Looking at his team and the players he has, does that change or move the needle for either one of you? Sorry, I'm looking at the trade again just to
It
compare
actually
to the
makes me want to
roster.
hold on to the BTJ even more, honestly. The
I
CD thing scares me to death right now.
I tend to agree with Coach. I think I'm going to hold here even more. Tyler, sorry, I was off screen. Do you have any change here, or are you sticking with your original position here of not doing the trade?
No, I think I'm sticking with it. CD, we've got the concerns. Marv hasn't performed as well. Neither has Tank, honestly. And we just got
Mhm.
JSN's best game of the season with DK out. So I'm keeping Brian Thomas Jr. at this point, and I'll just roll with the running backs I have.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. If anything, I'd maybe shop Marvin. Like, to be honest, I'd see if I could sell his name value and, add a big name running back there. So let's just switch the whole deal up, Coach. I've got a question for you. I'll start there. Would you move Marvin Harrison for Gibbs? Let's just say it's redraft. Let's just say it's redraft for
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Tyler.
Absolutely. I wouldn't even think twice about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I would too. So maybe that's something you try there, Franco, if you want to bolster that running back room, kind of give you a little bit of help while also still insulating it while having JSN, Tank, CD, and Brian Thomas. But I would monitor the CD situation because I think there's going to be some news there here soon. Last few questions here, guys. Bray Rock says, should I trade DK and James Cook for Justin Jefferson? Coach, how do you feel about this? Are you going to go get the best player in the game for DK and James Cook?
Again, the context is important, but I'm JJ. Yeah, I would 100% do that. I want JJ on my team.
Yep. I think you're spot on. Context matters here, but in a vacuum, give me JJ. Tyler?
Same.
Same. All right. We are a JJ group, guys. So if you haven't caught on to that, that's what we're doing. Last question we got here from Leo says, would you start Jaden Daniels or Sam Darnold at quarterback? Tyler, are you rolling with the Manders against the Steelers, or are you going to go with Sam Darnold taking on the Jags?
Oh boy. As much as I want to play Jaden Daniels, I don't want to play against the Steelers right now. Not their defense. I'd probably start Darnold as much as I hate it.
Coach? There's only one right answer, so
Uh,
answer it right.
yeah, I'm going with Daniels.
Right on. I will say, to Tyler's credit, the Steelers are the third toughest matchup for quarterbacks. So that is certainly a really tough situation that Daniels has coming. But I think, given how this offense is performing, I'm going to roll with Jaden Daniels just because I can't sit the guy. He's playing too well. But that's going to do it for us. We really appreciate everyone who's tuned in today. Willie says, thanks for answering my questions. Hey, thanks for being here, Willie. We're here every single Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern answering all of your questions. So please be sure to like the video. Go over on X, give us a follow at the FF Mediators. We are always there to help. So just DM us with any questions you might have. Also, go give our YouTube a subscription at the FF Mediators. And of course, we have to say we're grateful to be here with the Face Off Sports Network. So if you're not subscribed or followed to all of their channels, be sure to do that. But until next time, we will catch you then, guys.